U43 came out a few days ago, and I've had some time now to play with the new tanking changes and mainly with the Necromancer changes. Necromancer has always been in a good spot when it comes to the tanking hierarchy, as they've always been a really effective tank at dealing with the insane dots Sauce has been putting in bosses over the recent years. Not much actually changed with the new update, however. A couple of abilities were changed quite substantially, and those changes have helped Necromancer tanks have even more access to good buffs and debuffs. The biggest and most obvious change was to the Boneyard skill and its morphs. Base Boneyard and its morphs gained minor vulnerability, which is now one of the very few ways to get minor vulnerability in AoE. Boneyard used to always have to compete with skills like Caltrops, as Caltrops could be thrown and not immediately trigger trash pulls, while Boneyard the second it was cast would trigger trash pulls. However, now with the addition of minor vulnerability on the skill, this makes Boneyard a lot more viable and probably the better option in almost all cases. Along with gaining minor vulnerability, unnerving Boneyard also now has its effects persist 4.1 seconds to an enemy after they leave the zone. This makes this skill extremely useful on fights like Bahsei, where you're constantly moving abominations in and out of an area. Another pretty substantial change is to Bone Armor. Bone Armor gained minor resolve, which on paper isn't the biggest deal, as Resolving Vigor already gives this buff. However, the big change this makes is being able to drop Resolving Vigor off your bar, freeing up a bar space. The other weird interaction that this skill has is Necromancers usually have skills that drop corpses after half of their timer has been depleted. The weird part about this is Summoner's Armor has its duration increased from 20 to 30 seconds. If we keep this logic with Necromancer abilities dropping their corpses at 50% of their duration used, this would mean that instead of dropping a corpse every 10 seconds, it would be every 15. However, this isn't true. For whatever reason, Summoner's Armor still has a 10-second duration on when it will drop a corpse. Whether or not this is a bug, I don't know, but people have been bringing it up all of the PTS cycle and it didn't seem to ever get changed. The last major mechanical change to Necromancers is the Bone Totem. Bone Totem and its morphs now apply Major Cowardice. This gives Necromancers another really good defensive option, and side note that this is a very good debuff in Infinite Archive if you're at all planning to play that with the new update. The Major Cowardice from the skill is quite nice in some fights, however, on a personal note, I don't think I'll use this skill too much, as Bone Totem has never really sat well with me in terms of its gameplay utility, as the AoE is super small, and overall I just never really liked the skill. However, it's still very good. One other thing that changed with Bone Totem, and more specifically its morph Agony Totem, is technically it got nerfed as minor vulnerability was removed from the synergy. However, it's now on Boneyard, so this doesn't really matter. The last thing I want to go over is a major quality of life change, the Gravelord Sacrifice skill. This skill didn't get buffed or anything, it just got changed to be able to be cast out of combat. For me, this change is super nice, as the skill always felt really clunky not being able to cast it out of combat, and being able to now lets you save a couple of GCDs at the start of fights. The original change of not allowing this skill to be cast out of combat never really made sense to me. This skill didn't receive too big of a power hit because of it, but just always felt awkward at the beginning of the fights having to pull then cast it instead of casting it and pulling. It's just something that really rubbed me the wrong way, as it just made no sense to nerf it like that. However, this has now been reverted and it's a little bit nicer to use in the start of fights. But yeah, that's about it. Over the past couple days, I've been messing around with Necromancers and a bunch of PB progs I'm a part of, and overall they feel really good. They are fun to play and can fiddle with bar space a bit more due to the Bone Armor change. Overall, I'd say the Necromancer tanks are still one of the best and most fun tanks to play. What I would really like to know is if there's any Necro DPS mains on how they feel, as I never really get to play DPS, and I'd love to know how viable they are with the massive changes they've gotten to their kit. It seems like they could be a viable DPS now and not just an EC bot, but you never know with these things, so if anyone has any experience with a Necromancer as an actual parse DD, just, let me know. One last thing that is just kind of funny, and another thing I want to test really badly, is Grave Grasp. On targets like Talarian Dragons, it sounds like it'll do a lot of damage, but I'm not sure and I haven't really gotten to test it, so if anyone knows and could let me know, that'd be great. But I hope you enjoyed this video and got something out of it, or want to play Necromancer tank now.